Hey there, eighth grade. All right, so I'm not here with you today, but you've got an iPad and the closest thing to me, which is a recording. We're going to pick up where we left off with yesterday's activity. Everyone did a really good job of trying to separate out rocks and minerals, and what we ultimately found out in all the classes was that really a mineral is like a pure substance, whereas a rock is a combination of minerals. We're just going to briefly go through the 5 characteristics or criteria that all minerals share in common. As you're watching the video, I'd like to have you write down these 5 criteria in your ISN. I suppose probably page 1 would be a good idea. And then you can do a right side for that. The criteria or characteristics are really simple, easy. Sit back, maybe put this on double speed if you want it to go by twice as fast, but this won't take long at all. Let's start with the easy one, and let's look at. And so we're going to start with a rock because that's the easy one. You can see a picture of a rock here on the left, kind of up close, and you can see actually a microscopic picture over here on the right. The simple definition for a rock is it's just a collection of minerals. So if you need to pause the recording just to write that down real quick, I think it'd be helpful for you to have, because I may ask you to look at a rock or a mineral and say which one is it. The easiest way for you to spot it is just to look and see, okay, is it made out of one color or many colors? Because if it's made out of many colors, like you see right here, then you've got many different minerals. Presumably you've been able to write this down now, so I'm going to take you to the next part. Now, the next part's a little trickier, how you define a mineral. So it's not as easy, but there are 5 characteristics that all minerals have in common. And if we go through each of the 5 characteristics and you just jot them down, I think you'll be able to define a mineral a little bit easier. The first characteristic is that minerals must be solid. For it to be considered a mineral, it can't be in a liquid state, can't be in a gas state. For example, lava technically is not a mineral. And obviously, any gases coming out of anything would not be considered a mineral either. But if the lava was to freeze solid, then you would have a mineral, either one pure mineral or a bunch of different minerals, in which case you could call it a rock. So the first thing is a mineral's got to be solid. You got to have that. Another characteristic that you need to have, number 2 in fact here, is that a mineral must be inorganic. And that means that it's not produced by a critter or a living thing. I'm thinking of salt, for example. Salt is inorganic. It's not made by living things. So therefore, it's a mineral. Sugar, though. Sugar is grown in a sugarcane plant. Like a plant, not like a factory. I mean like a plant with leaves and stuff. Therefore, sugar is not considered a mineral because it's organic. Pearl, here's another good one. A pearl comes from an oyster. And oysters are alive, oysters are organic, so pearls are considered organic. They're not inorganic. Pearls are not a mineral. All right, the third characteristic is that minerals must occur naturally. They've got to form in nature on their own. If you make it in a factory, it doesn't count as a mineral. So it's got to be naturally formed. That's an easy one. There are some minerals in jewelry that are actually manufactured in a factory. If they do that, they've cheated. It's not technically a mineral. You could still wear it as jewelry, but it's not a mineral. All right, we're getting close here out of the 5 characteristics. Characteristic number 4, a little trickier, but still pretty easy to tell. Minerals always have a definite chemical composition. That's just a fancy way of saying that they all have a specific recipe. So quartz, for example, which was in your bucket yesterday, quartz is always SiO2, which is silicon dioxide. It's 1 silicon atom, 2 oxygen atoms. You just repeat the pattern over and over, and that's quartz. And it's always that chemical composition. It's always that recipe. Halite, which is just table salt, and that was also in your bucket yesterday. Halite is NaCl, sodium chloride. And so every mineral has its own unique recipe. These are some really simple ones. Some minerals can have some very complicated, long chemical recipes because they're made out of lots of different atoms. But it's always the same definite recipe each time. So they're very predictable in that way. And so then the fifth and final characteristic is that minerals always have a definite crystalline pattern or shape. And this is probably the weirdest out of the five just because it's a little more abstract. But think of it this way. Since all these minerals have a specific recipe, that means that the atoms are arranged in a very particular way on the inside. And it's this arrangement of the atoms in this orderly, regular pattern that gives the mineral its definite crystalline pattern. So there's always a pattern to how these things go together. It's not haphazard. It's not just slammed together. These things form into very specific chains and structures. So when you put all five of those together, you have a definition for a mineral. It's a bit of a mouthful, but you have the whole thing here. So if you need to pause this part, feel free to. But a mineral is this. A mineral is a naturally occurring, inorganic solid which has a characteristic internal atomic structure and a specific chemical composition. Like I said, it's a mouthful, but it's the simplest way to define a mineral. So ironically, minerals are not that easy to define. They're easy to spot, but they're hard to define in a sentence. And before you exit out of here, just check out this picture. You see this guy standing here? He's standing on a giant crystal of gypsum. In fact, he's in a giant underground cave full of gypsum. If you guys can remember on Monday to bug me about this, I've got some video footage of people crawling around down in this cave with these crystals. They're absolutely amazing. It's one of the coolest things ever. So those are the five characteristics. You've got your page filled right now at this point. What I'd propose for you to do is hit the stop button and then go ahead and do a right side for capturing what you've learned from this right here. Maybe trying to summarize all the different characteristics up into a picture might be a cool way to do it. And then once you get this part done and you have your ISN table of contents in as well, I'd say you're ready for the household mineralogy or the minerals in your house worksheet, which is hopefully something that you'll find kind of interesting. So good luck, everybody.